Hello friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And as you can see, I have a lot of stuff piled on my counter today because I have a lot of stuff to do today and to show you what's going on. But first, I'm going to get to the zucchini since that's what I'm titling this video. So for those who came in here to see how I like to preserve my zucchini, let's get to that first. Alright, so I have dehydrated zucchini before, and a lot of you who've been following me for a while know I love to dehydrate a lot of stuff. And though I liked it, it just didn't turn out as good as I had hoped. And I tried dehydrating it in slices and all grated up in different ways, and none of them really appealed to me personally. I've also grated my zucchini and froze it for use in zucchini bread and for making my beef vegetable fritters, and that's okay, but we don't eat a lot of bread anymore, and it just gets a little mushy, and it's just not my favorite either. Well, last year I tried something and just thought I'd give it a try, and I figure if worse comes to worse, at least I learned something from it. And I was actually surprised that so far it is my favorite way to preserve zucchini. And I'm going to show you what I do, and then I'm also going to show you something else I'm going to try new this year with my zucchini preservation. Alright, so I've been getting some zucchini from my garden, but not as much as I did last year, which is weird because I have like 3 times the amount of plants as I had last year. And I'm getting less zucchini than I did last year. However, I have a good friend who's getting tons, and she's been blessing me with hers too. So one of these I think is mine, and one is hers. I don't know which is which. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with this bigger one. And I like to just cut the ends off. Okay, and then I'm just going to cut it in about 1/2 inch to 1 inch slices. Sometimes it just depends on my mood at the time, how thick I slice it. And then I'm going to quarter up each slice. So 1 whole zucchini is usually what I do at a time. A zucchini this size, at least for the 2 of us, this is perfect. And then I'm going to take a Food Saver bag. Now this is actually not the Food Saver brand, but I found this one a couple years ago, and it is just as good as the Food Saver bags, but a lot less expensive, and you buy them in the rolls. You can only buy them in the bulk rolls like this in 2 different sizes. This is the smaller size, the one I prefer best for just the 2 of us. And I will link to those below. There's one where you can get just the bigger, one where you can get 2 rolls of the smaller, and one where you can get a roll of each size. And it's really a good price, and I highly recommend them. So I've already got my bag pre-cut and sealed. And so I will also link to the Food Saver I use in the description box below along with the bags. And so I'm just going to throw these in here, just like so. And then pull out my Food Saver plugged into our solar power. Alright, all sealed up nice and tight, and then I'm just going to throw it in the freezer. And yes, surprisingly enough, this worked really great for us throughout the year. I love this, and I only did like 3 or 4 bags last year, and I wish I would have done tons more. So this year I'm putting away a lot like this. And so if you don't have a Food Saver and you like to freeze stuff, I highly recommend it. It's a great thing to have, and I've actually gone through quite a few Food Savers. I like the more simple design better than the big fancy ones myself. They seem to last longer, so I recommend that. Not the kind with all the electronic gizmos that have sensors and all that. Those will wear out faster. Go with a more simple design, and trust me, you'll like it better. So this will go in my freezer out in the shop. Now for the other thing I'm going to try for the first time this year, just like with the green beans, is I'm going to try fermenting some zucchini, and I'm going to throw in a couple of serrano peppers and some elephant garlic that I got from a friend. I do have some elephant garlic and regular garlic growing out in my garden, but it's not ready yet. So here's just 1 clove. So I don't know if I'll use that whole thing, but I will use some of it. And of course, probably some red pepper, even though I've got the serrano pepper in there because I want this nice and spicy. So, starting like I did with the other, I'm going to try going with just nice thin slices. Well, not too thin. Okay, we'll see how much we can pack in there, and I'm going to do my layer method like I normally do. So I better cut up some serrano peppers and garlic too. Okay, so now I'm going to sprinkle in a few serrano peppers, a little bit of the garlic, layer in some more zucchini slices. And then, as usual, this is about halfway is where I like to add my spices. And I'm just doing a little bit because I want to try it first like I did with the green beans, which turned out really good, by the way. And go ahead and throw in some red pepper. I'm keeping this one more simple because I just want to see if I even like how the fermented zucchini turns out before I get crazy with adding too much more spice. But I do know I like spicy, hot. And I like garlic. So layer in some more zucchini, some more serrano peppers, some more garlic. And we'll just keep doing this until the jar is full. I've got all of the 3 different fermentation starters that I did that last video on. You can see I made more of the raisin because I'm liking this for the bread. And I'm going to try the blueberry one in this one. Now I don't need a full 1/4 cup since this is only a pint-sized jar. I use a 1/4 cup per quart jar. So I'm going to put a little bit of that back. Put that in there. Anyway, somebody asked a question about the fermentation starter, like the fruit flavor ones, if it affects the flavor of what I'm fermenting. And usually no, it doesn't, because you're using such a small amount and the flavor of the fruit is very mild in the fermentation starter anyway, that you're typically not going to notice the difference, especially if you're putting it in something that's already really spicy like kimchi and all that kind of stuff, because it's going to cover up any flavor of the fruit. Alright, so now I'm going to top it off with my filtered rainwater and put on my Tatler lid here. First I'm going to put the lid on pretty tight because I want to shake it up. I like to shake those spices all through there. You see how that looks? It looks pretty. So this, I'm guessing, is going to turn out pretty much like my lacto-fermented pickles. So it looks pretty, and I'm anxious to try it, and I'll do an update on this later on. So that should be ready in about 3 days. Alright, so now I'm going to continue on and show you what else I have going on around here. So as you see, like I said, I got all these out of the refrigerator so I could feed them. I'm hoping today to finally start shooting a video on how I make bread with the fermentation starter, and I really like using the raisin for that. So hopefully I'll get that started today. But for now, I'm letting these all get up to sit there and get good and bubbly since I just fed them. Then here, I've got some grains soaking, and I have a couple of videos of that. One is already out. I put out last year. I put out in the winter on how I do my wheat berries in the winter, and then a new one on how I do them in the summer. And so if that's ready, if that's up, I'll link to it up here. And these are the hard white wheat berries. And soft white wheat berries. And then here, tomorrow I plan on doing a really big pot of homemade chili so that I can some of it up for long-term storage, because it's really nice having some home canned chili on hand when you just get really busy and you realize, oh no, I forgot to pull something out of the freezer to thaw to make for dinner or whatever. And you just pull out a little jar of chili and you're ready to go. You just heat it up in your pot on the wood stove or whatever, and you're good to go. So I'm soaking my kidney beans right now, which is what the beans I prefer for my chili, and just got them started with a little bit of vinegar and water and rainwater, and so they should be ready to start cooking tomorrow after a good rinse. And then over here, I've got some soap making stuff out. I'm going to be making another batch of peppermint tea soap because it is one of my top 3 best-selling soaps. And this time I'm going to be adding some oats to it. So I'll be making a peppermint tea oatmeal soap. And all the soaps I make are to sell are vegan. So I always use coconut oil in those, anyone who's curious. All right, now let me get onto some vinegar. Again, I do a lot of vinegar stuff, and I get a lot of questions about vinegar. Now, this here is my blueberry vinegar that I just filtered out yesterday. And so you'll see at the top, you'll see a little bit of white stuff floating, and at the bottom. A lot of people keep asking me about what this is, or when they start making the vinegar, they see this stuff and they get concerned. This is simply the mother. You want this. This is very important. And as I'm always saying, you don't need to add a mother from another vinegar to get your vinegar going, because it'll make its own. So this one turned out really good. And the other thing I wanted to answer about this was done with frozen blueberries from a couple of years ago. And I was trying to get them used up. So as I was picking my new blueberries from this year and putting them in there, I could cycle through. So I decided to try some blueberry vinegar. It was my first time making blueberry vinegar and my first time using frozen berries for making it. And it's turned out really good. So nice and tart, very vinegary, very strong. Now, the funny thing is the very next day I started a batch of blackberry vinegar also from frozen berries. And though it's coming along, it's got a good mother forming here and also at the top. You see that? It smells wonderful and it has a nice flavor. However, it's not real tart yet like vinegar should be. Even though this is only one day behind the other, this smells and tastes a little bit more like wine. So when your vinegar smells and tastes more like wine than like vinegar, you need to give it more time. So simply cover it, don't worry about this stuff at the top. There's nothing wrong with that. It's totally natural. Like I said, some of this stuff I find to be kind of a waxy, so I assumed it wasn't all just the mother, and it could be. I'm still not certain, but what I'm guessing it is the bloom from the outside of the fruit, because your fruit is going to get a waxy layer that also has yeast in it, which is what helps things ferment, but it is a waxy type layer that is a protective layer on the fruit. So I'm guessing that's what the waxy part of it is, but it is also the mother of the vinegar itself. So if your vinegar is still kind of smells and tastes like wine, it simply isn't ready yet. I may have put a little bit too much sugar, or for whatever reason, this one's just taking longer. They're living organisms, so they're not always going to behave the same way all the time. And if your house is colder, like our house has been colder lately, it just hasn't been a very hot summer, so things are going to take longer. I had somebody ask me about some vegetables that they were fermenting, and it had been 3 days and they weren't even bubbly yet. Just give it more time if that happens, and don't worry about it. It could take 5, 6, maybe even 7 days if your house is cold. After about 7 days, if you see no action, no bubbles starting to form yet, then it's a good chance you didn't get a good ferment going, or your fermentation starter was too weak. But I have never had problems using my fermentation starter with it, with getting a good ferment on my vegetables and fruits. So sometimes you're just going to find it takes a little bit more time. So be patient and keep working with it and keep trying, and keep the questions coming in. I'm not concerned about the questions. I will just keep answering them. If you've heard me say it before, then please be patient, because there's new people coming in all the time with the same questions, and I'm happy to answer that again, because these are important questions, and yeah, so keep them coming in. Okay, and then the final thing I was going to talk about, as you can see right here, if you saw Mr. Rain's video on how to make a collapsible wood stove dehydrator, I will link to that up here. Well, since then, he's redesigned it even more and made it just a little bit smaller and easy to ship. Now, this is actually 2, and he made them so that they're stackable. So if a person wanted to buy 2 of them, you know, for depending on how much space they had, they could just go ahead and stack it and then give them more space for dehydrating. So what we're doing right now, for those of you who are interested in a handmade dehydrator for using on top of your wood stove or even just near your wood stove. If you're doing herbs, you might want to just put it close to your wood stove. Things like beef jerky, I do it right on top of the wood stove. And these are $100 a piece, and that includes shipping. And you can, we're not selling the racks because we don't make those, but I will link to 2 different size racks below that I recommend using with it, and it's going to depend on the space you have. Now, you can get a 12-inch, this will fit a 12-inch rack, so you can get a 12 by 17-inch rack to go in there if you have the space for it on your wood stove or near your wood stove, and then you can get a lot of dehydrating space. Or you can go with the smaller, you look at your cooling racks. Just look in the baking section at cooling racks. Another common size is an 8.5 by 12, which would fill this up about right this way and then straight across this way. So if you're interested, just send us an email to raincountryhomestead@gmail.com or comment below, or find us on Facebook at Rain Country Handcrafted Goods and let us know if you're interested in one of these. Again, these are handcrafted by Mr. Rain, and they're made very sturdy, and they will last you for years and years and years. The first one he made me has been wonderful. I've used it for more than just a dehydrator. I actually put a cast iron rack on the top of it, sitting next to the wood stove when I'm not using it for dehydrating, and I use it as an extra little table for when I'm cooking on my wood stove. There's so many purposes for that. So some of these extra ones he's made, I'm even thinking of using as a soap drying rack in the other room. So lots of purposes for it. Let us know if you're interested, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible on that. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed my this and that video for today, and that maybe you learned something new. Again, any more questions on the fermenting, the soaking of the beans, the soaking of the berries, just go ahead and ask. If I don't answer right away in the comments, then watch for the answers in upcoming videos. All right, thanks for watching. Take care, and God bless.